The United States built the first transcontinental railroad in 1869. Europe has extensive rail networks connecting entire continents. But South America, a continent the size of North America, has almost no transcontinental railroads. You can't take a train from the Atlantic to the Pacific across South America. You can't travel by rail from north to south. Instead, the continent is fragmented into isolated coastal nations connected by airplane and ship, not rail. So why did one continent build continental rails while the other didn't? The answer involves mountains that are impossible, jungles that are impenetrable, and a colonial legacy that deliberately kept South America fractured. Let's establish what exists and what doesn't. North America has the Transcontinental Railroad connecting Atlantic to Pacific, extensive north-south rail networks, multiple routes connecting major cities. South America has thousands of kilometers of coastlines, virtually no transcontinental railroads, few north-south connections, mostly isolated regional rail networks. There are a few exceptions, some rail lines in the Andes, some connecting major cities, but nothing approaching an integrated continental network. Why? 3 factors: geography that's actively hostile, colonial infrastructure designed to isolate, and economics that made rail impossible where it matters most. First, the Andes Mountains. This isn't just a mountain range. It's one of the longest, highest mountain systems on Earth. The Andes stretch 7,000 kilometers, from Colombia in the north to Argentina in the south. They run right down the spine of South America, dividing the continent in half. Elevation comparison. The Rocky Mountains average 1,500 to 2,500 meters, max 4,400 meters. The Alps average 2,000 to 3,000 meters, max 4,800 meters. The Andes average 3,000 to 4,000 meters, max 6,961 meters. The Andes are higher, steeper, and more continuous than any other major mountain range. They're also geologically active. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides. Building infrastructure here is incredibly dangerous. Building a railroad across the Andes requires tunnels through mountains, switchbacks and engineering solutions for extreme grades, constant maintenance due to earthquakes and weather, routing around active volcanoes and unstable terrain. The few rail lines that do cross the Andes are engineering marvels. The Central Railway of Peru climbs to 4,818 meters, higher than any railroad in North America. But it's a single line serving mining operations, not a major trade route. Building a transcontinental line would require massive investment with no clear economic return. Now let's talk about the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest covers about 5.5 million square kilometers, roughly the size of the European Union. It's not just a forest. It's one of the harshest environments to build infrastructure in. The Amazon is impossibly dense jungle, extremely wet, populated by indigenous communities, ecologically irreplaceable, logistically impossible to supply construction. Building a railroad through the Amazon would require clearing massive amounts of forest, building bridges over seasonal rivers that flood entire regions, constant maintenance in an environment that reclaims everything, protecting against local opposition and international backlash. The economics don't work. The environmental cost is too high. and there's no cargo to justify the expense. Here's where history becomes destiny. South America's rail infrastructure wasn't built to connect the continent. It was built to extract resources. During the colonial period, European powers wanted one thing from South America: resources. Gold, silver, copper, agricultural products. They didn't care about connecting South American nations to each other. Instead, they built transportation systems to move resources from interior mining areas to coastal ports for export to Europe. The pattern? Peru. Rails from Andes silver mines down to Lima port. Chile. Rails from northern nitrate fields to coastal ports. Argentina. Rails from Pampas grain regions to Buenos Aires port. Brazil. Rails from coffee plantations to Rio de Janeiro. Every rail line was designed as a spoke from interior to coast. No one built circumferential lines connecting different regions of South America. That wasn't profitable. That didn't serve colonial interests. This colonial legacy created a fragmented continent. Each South American nation developed as an isolated economic unit. Export resources to Europe. Import manufactured goods from Europe. Trade with each other? Minimal. Even after independence, this pattern persisted. Why invest in connecting to your neighbor's economy when you can profit from direct trade with Europe? The result? South American nations remain geographically and economically isolated. Trade flows east-west, not north-south. Why did North America build transcontinental rails while South America didn't? Geography. North America has lower mountains, more navigable plains, fewer rainforests, more easily developable interior. Economy. North America had internal trade demands, massive population movement, manufacturing centers in the north needing Western resources. Reason to connect internally, not just export. Politics. North America had United States as dominant power, forcing continental integration. U.S. government subsidizing rail construction. Consolidation into fewer, larger nations. Focus on internal connectivity. Timing. North America built continental rails in the 1860s to 1880s, when rail technology was new and exciting. Land grabs and expansion were priorities. Government saw strategic value in connecting east to west. South America never had these conditions. The Andes were always too hard. The Amazon was always too impenetrable. The colonial legacy was too deeply set. And by the time South American nations might have considered rail, cheaper ship routes around Cape Horn were established, and eventually, airplanes made continental rail irrelevant. In the 1970s to 2000s, there were proposals to build transcontinental rail. The Initiative for the Integration of South American Infrastructure proposed building roads, rails, and ports to integrate South America. Cost? Tens of billions. Status? Mostly abandoned or stalled. The Bi-Oceanic Railway proposed connecting Argentina's interior to Chilean Pacific ports. Status? Still in planning, unlikely to materialize. The Amazon Rail Corridor proposed rails through the rainforest. Status? Blocked by environmental and indigenous opposition. Why did these fail? Cost. Building transcontinental rail in South America costs 2 to 5 times more than in North America due to terrain. Economics. No cargo volume justifies the expense. Air freight and ships are cheaper for most goods. Environmental opposition. International pressure against rainforest development. Political will. South American governments lack resources for such massive projects. Alternative routes. Shipping around South America and air freight already work. So how does South America actually move goods and people? Air travel. Dominant for long-distance passenger travel and high-value cargo. Expensive, but fastest. Maritime shipping. Dominant for bulk goods. Ships go around Cape Horn or through Panama Canal. Regional roads and rails. Exist within countries and regions but don't cross the continent. Rivers. The Amazon and other rivers provide some internal connectivity, but seasonal flooding limits reliability. The result? South America trades and communicates through the outside world rather than internally. A Brazilian merchant shipping to Peru sends goods by ship around the continent rather than via internal rail. Inefficient, but that's the reality of South American geography and history. What if South America had built transcontinental rails? Economic integration. South American nations could trade directly instead of through external routes. Prices would drop. Regional economies would grow. Development. Interior regions could develop economically rather than remaining isolated. Cities could grow in previously inaccessible areas. Political unity. Rail networks create interdependence. Nations become economically linked, reducing conflict. Environmental cost. Would have required massive rainforest clearing and ecosystem destruction. The Amazon's current state might be dramatically different. But none of this happened, and it's unlikely to happen now. Modern transportation, air freight, container ships, highways, have made transcontinental rail economically obsolete in South America. Even if the Andes weren't in the way, it wouldn't make economic sense to build it. The closest thing to a transcontinental project is improved highways, particularly the interoceanic highway connecting Peru to Brazil. But this is road-based, not rail, and even this faces environmental and economic challenges. So here's why South America has no transcontinental railroads. Because geography and history conspired to keep it fragmented. The Andes are too high. The Amazon is too impenetrable. Colonial powers deliberately built extraction infrastructure rather than integration infrastructure. And by the time South America might have reconsidered, transportation technology had moved on. North America built railroads to connect itself. South America was designed, both by geography and by colonial legacy, to remain divided. Resources flowed out. Connections flowed around. Internal integration never happened. It's a powerful example of how geography isn't destiny by itself. It's geography plus history plus economics that determines whether infrastructure gets built. But here's my question. If South America had the technology and resources to build a transcontinental railroad today, would it be worth it? Your options. Yes, do it. The economic integration benefits are worth the environmental cost. No. Protect the Amazon. The rainforest is more valuable preserved than developed. Maybe. Build it, but with strict environmental protections. Alternative. Invest in highways or air networks instead. Drop your answer in the comments. Economists, engineers, and environmental scientists. What would a modern transcontinental South American rail actually cost? And would it be economically viable?